The focus today will be on really tuning your ear to hear particular kinds of language. And we're now into the evoking process, the third of the tasks that I talked about early on. So this is the first presentation on the evoking task, which really is central to motivational interviewing. The others will be familiar in many other systems, but I think this one is fairly unique to the method of motivational interviewing. And again, today is about tuning your ears so that you hear particular kinds of language, and you know that when you hear that, you've heard something important. I mentioned earlier the internal committee that when people are considering making a change, it's very common, it's normal to be ambivalent about it, to see some reasons why you might want to do it, and to be reluctant about it also. And it's almost like we have a committee inside who's debating whether to make this change or not. And we can literally talk ourselves into doing something, and we can literally talk ourselves out of doing something. Sometimes we do that out loud. So you actually say something and make a commitment. But also, I think it happens covertly. It happens in your thinking that you're, and when you'll see examples of this today, that you're just considering different pros and cons of making the change, and it might be doing it quietly, might be doing it aloud. So remember, ambivalence is normal. It's a normal step along the way to change. So the contemplation stage in this trans-theoretical model of change is where people are just considering the pros and cons, and that's actually progress toward making a change. So this concept of change talk is the main thing we're going to focus on today. When I wrote the first paper on motivational interviewing in 1983, I used the phrase self-motivational statements, things that clients would say that are moving in the direction of change. And that was the language that appeared also in the first edition of our book in 1991. Then we switched to using the somewhat simpler term change talk, which is something that the client says that moves them in the direction of making the change. Really anything your client says that moves them toward actually doing it. Now that says that in order to know whether it's change talk, you have to know what the goal is. You have to know what you're trying to move toward. And so the process of focusing that I mentioned last time is the one where you are together saying, where are we going? What are the goals of our working together, developing shared goals? And then when you have a goal that you're moving toward, now you know what you're listening for. Once a client was referred to me to talk about his drinking. I think I mentioned this before. His therapist referred him to me to talk about his drinking. And one of the first things he said was, I think smoking is my real problem. Now that's change talk about smoking. Smoking is a problem for me, but it's not change talk about drinking. So it's specific to the goal also. And you'll see that as we get further into this. Now, I learned a lot about change talk from a colleague we hired in the psychology department named Paul Amrine. Paul is a psycholinguist. And when he gave his talk, his job talk, he was talking about the ways in which we make commitments to each other. He was very interested in the language of commitment. And one thing that he said really struck me. He said, a conversation doesn't go well when the person who's asking for something is placing a higher level of demand than the level of willingness of the person they're talking to. And that sounded very familiar to me clinically. and related to something that I tell people that I'm training, which is don't get ahead of your clients in eagerness to change, but stay with your client where they are. So I began talking to Paul about this idea of change talk. And he said, I think it's too broad a concept. You're mixing together a number of things that to the ear of a psycholinguist are very different. So I said, teach me about that. And so he began to tell me about these different categories of language that he was listening for. And it made a big change in the way in which we understood change talk. This happened in between our second and third editions. So the second edition of Motivational Interviewing came out in 2002. And then I met Paul around 2003. And suddenly I began to understand from a psycholinguist perspective the kind of language we were asking about. So that in the third edition then is from there, and in the fourth edition is the way that we're talking about change talk. Now, we have two different kinds of change talk that we distinguish. One of them is we call preparatory change talk. So it's like getting ready. It's the things you say to yourself, the things that your client will say to themselves as they're considering when they're in the contemplation stage. So these are the kinds of things that you hear from clients when they're thinking about change. They haven't made up their mind, but they're weighing it. One kind of language Paul taught me is desire language. And the verbs that go with that in English are verbs like I want. He said every language on the face of the earth has a way of saying I want. In fact, babies are very good at communicating that before they even have language. So I want, I would like, I wish, I hope is sort of in this category too. So the things that your client is saying about what they would desire, how they would like for things to be. That's different from ability language. Ability language is I can, I could, I'm able to, that's possible for me. So someone might say to you, if they're talking to you about smoking, I could stop smoking, but I don't want to. So there you have desire and ability kind of on opposite sides of the equation. Then there's reasons. Reasons language has a kind of if-then quality. Well, if I did make this change, then this good thing might happen. If I did quit smoking, I would have some extra money that I've been spending on cigarettes. If I did quit smoking, my family would be happy. If I did quit smoking, I think on the playing football, I'd have more breath. I'd be able to keep up with my teammates. So those are saying these are good things that would happen if I do make this change. Also in this category are less good things that might happen if I don't make this change. So if I don't do this, if I don't quit smoking, I could get lung cancer eventually. If I don't quit smoking, I'm having a hard time keeping up with my team on the field. So anything you hear that is a reason to make the change is a third kind of preparatory change talk. And then there's need language, because sometimes people just say, I have to, I must, I've got to lose weight. I have to do something to help my children. And so there's an urgency to this language that doesn't really say why. If it said why, in fact, it would be reasons. but people come in with this urgent, I've got to do this. I must do this. I have to do this. And that's the kind of language that Paul called need language. Now, in English, we use the letters D, A, R, and N just to remember these four categories. That doesn't work as soon as you translate this into another language. But darn is an acronym in English that I literally use when I'm, as you'll see, when I'm trying to frame questions to help me remember these different kinds of change talk. But preparatory change talk is not making a promise. It's not making a commitment. Suppose you ask someone, or someone asks you, will you please help me with this? I'd like to help you. I want to help you. I wish I could help you. All of that is desire language. I could help you. That's ability language. It's possible. I see why I should help you. You've helped me in the past, so this is giving reasons why the help would come. I need to help you. It's important for me to help you. That's need language. But none of that is saying I will help you. These are all different from making a commitment or making a promise. I don't know what kind of language is used when weddings happen in India. Here, traditionally, the people who are married might be asked, will you take this person to be your spouse? And forsaking all others, stick only with this person, through richer, through poorer, in sickness and in health, for better, for worse, until death do you part. That's actually from the 16th century, language from a worship book in the 16th century from Henry VIII's archbishop. So that's a kind of traditional wedding vow. So will you take this person in sickness and health? You would not say, I want to. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't say, well, I could. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't say, I have good reasons to. Yeah. And you wouldn't say, I need to. The answer to that question that is desired is I do, or I will. Yeah. It's making a commitment. And so Paul taught us about how commitment language is different from these other things that are kind of getting ready, but not there yet. So you need to remember and notice when people give you their getting ready language. Now, besides commitment language, on the other side of the hill is what we call mobilizing change talk. It's kind of getting moving. And as you hear this kind of change talk, people are getting closer to actually doing it. Commitment language is I'm going to, I will, I have decided to do this. I promise you, I intend to. Those are all statements that are more like committing statements. But then there are a variety of things we discovered as we started to listen carefully. Certain kinds of speech that are almost commitment, but not quite. I'm ready to do this. I'm willing to do this. That's pretty good. That's almost there, but it's still not quite the same as I will. Will you marry this person? I'm willing to. That's different from I will. And then as we listen to clients talking in counseling sessions, Dr. Moyers noticed something else also that we now call taking steps. People would, if they had been in before, they would come back, and in between the sessions, they had done something that was a step toward making the change. They actually took some action. A person who's considering changing their drinking, for example, of alcohol, might say, I got rid of all the alcohol in the house. I poured it all out, threw it all away. Someone who is thinking about maybe going back to college. might say, yeah, well, I looked up some college catalogs. I went online and to learn about this. So the person had been doing something. They've been actually taking a step. And that also predicts the likelihood of the change happening. Commitment language is a little stronger commitment of it happening than a person saying, I want to. Nonetheless, all kinds of change talk are welcome. And all kinds of change talk you should hear and listen to and remember because we use them in the evoking process. And we use the acronym CATS, CAT, to remember these three kinds of change talk in English. So it's a little bit like climbing a hill. It even feels that way when you're doing motivational interviewing. When you're kind of going up the hill and you're hoping that the person will begin to move toward making this change that you've talked about together, you hear preparatory change talk. Well, I could, I wish I could. I wish I could is interesting. I wish is desire, but I wish I could says I'm not sure it's possible. So you get your ear tuned to the complexities of language coming from your client. As the person gets closer to making the change, then you begin to hear mobilizing change talk. And if you remember the trans-theoretical model of change, the stages of change that Jim Prochaska and Carlo Di Clemente talked about map pretty well onto this kind of change talk, that early in contemplation, you hear preparatory change talk. As people get into the preparation stage and begin considering how they might do it, and then into the action stage, you begin to hear willing activation language. I'm willing to. I could ability language there, and so you kind of know where people are in the stages of change from what they're saying. However, I find that clients move around among these stages a lot, even during a single conversation. So it doesn't seem to be as clean as find out what stage the person's in and then take down your manual for dealing with people in that stage, because these are very mobile. They're very changeable. And so you stay with the person as they kind of move around, even during a session, among these different levels of readiness. Now, there's another side of the coin. I've been talking about change talk, but the other side of ambivalence, the other side that you'll hear is arguing against change. For a while, we called this counter change talk. We came up with the somewhat simpler term sustained talk, which is arguing to not change, arguing to stay the same, arguing to do the same thing you've been doing all along. And it's the same coin, they're just opposite sides of the coin. And so all of those kinds of change talk, you also hear on the other side. For example, if we use the example of smoking, I really enjoy smoking. That's desire language. I like smoking, I want to smoke. All of that is desire language on behalf of not changing, on behalf of continuing to smoke. I don't think I can quit. I'm not sure I could. That's ability language, actually inability language, on the other side of the coin. I have to smoke in order to relax. It's the only way I have in the day to just kind of kick back and take a minute and settle down. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have cigarettes to just take a little break and relax. That's giving a reason to continue smoking. I don't need to quit. That's need language. It's not important for me. I don't have to. I intend to keep on smoking and nobody can stop me. That is commitment. That's commitment language to continuing to smoke. I'm not willing to quit. That's in that activation language area. I'm not ready. I bought 4 cartons of cigarettes today. That's taking steps to continue smoking. So all the same kinds of change talk can appear on either side of the coin. So now I want you to think about, to listen to some statements I'm going to offer you on the screen and consider, is this change talk? What is this? So you'll be listening for some change talk. And here the goal is increased physical activity. So this is the person you're talking to who wants to be more active, who wants to exercise more, or at least be more physically active in their life. Maybe they have diabetes, maybe they need to lose some weight, whatever the reason. But that's the goal. So you're listening for change talk related to increasing physical activity. And on your screen, so you can see each other if you have your camera turned on. You can see each other. If the statement sounds to you like preparatory change talk, it desire, ability, reasons, or need, then on your screen just show a thumbs up. This is, yeah, that's preparatory change talk. That's in the darn category. If you think it's mobilizing change talk, then make a heart on the screen. All right, show that on your screen. So you're making a little guess here. No penalty for missing, by the way, no problem. But what I want you to do is, with each statement, think about, is that preparatory change talk? Is that mobilizing change talk, commitment, activation, taking steps? Or is it not change talk? If it's not change talk, here's the symbol to say, no, I don't think that's change talk. So here we go. Now, because I have my slide on my screen, I can't see you actually, but you can see each other. You ready? Now remember, it's increased physical activity that is the goal. I'd like to be in better shape physically. I'd like to. Is that preparatory? Is that mobilizing? Or is it not change talk? It's desire language. I wish, I hope, I like, I want. When you hear that, you're hearing desire language. That's on the upside of the hill. That's preparatory change talk. I wish I could see you all. Desire language. I don't have time to add anything else to my daily schedule. It's not change talk. When I'm doing training like this with people in a room, I have them signaling which of these. If it's preparatory change talk, if they have tables in front of them, I have them drum on the table. So you can hear in the room, but kind of how people are voting. If they think it's mobilizing change talk, I have them applaud. And if they think it's not change talk, they just stay quiet. But on the screen, that doesn't work. So that's why we're doing these three physical indications. I bought a pair of running shoes today or yesterday. Preparatory, mobilizing, or not change talk? Mobilizing. It's what we call taking steps. The person did something. They haven't started exercising yet, but they did something that makes it easier, kind of moves them a step closer. My doctor told me I should lose some weight on behalf of my heart, perhaps. It's preparatory and it's a reason to be more active. I could probably walk a little more. Preparatory change talk, it's about ability. I could do it. It's possible. Whenever a client says something like that to you, you're hearing something important, because change talk predicts change happening. It's people literally talking themselves in the direction of doing it. I'd be willing to walk a little more. Still not saying I'm going to. And yet it's activation language. It's mobilizing change. I'm willing to. I'm ready to. I'm prepared to. That's getting pretty close to I will. I know it's important to stay active. It's need language. Importance is about need. I think I'm already fairly healthy, not change talk. I don't need to do anything. I'm fine. Now, a few that are just a little more challenging. I do need to quit smoking. I'm sorry, that's a misprint. I don't need to change to quit smoking is what it should be. I do need to quit smoking is not change talk about physical activity. So here it doesn't count as change talk because the goal is increased physical activity. Changing smoking is fine. I do need to quit smoking, but it's not, at least it's not yet change talk. I used to run several times a week. If it's about past behavior, it's not change talk. It's not saying I want to now. I could now. Person who's saying I used to run several times a week might be in a wheelchair. It's not change talk, at least not yet. Now, if you're talking to a client about increasing physical activity, and they say I used to run several times a week, you might be one step away from hearing some change talk, but it's not yet. Mm-hmm. I wish I could get stronger. Desire language. I'm going to start exercising regularly. That's commitment language. I'll try to walk more. That's activation language. Now, that's an interesting one because sometimes helping professional will say, what do you mean try? You're going to do it or not? This is good. Anytime you hear change talk, appreciate it. Listen to it, because that's mobilizing change talk. Now, what does I'll try mean? I'll try kind of implies desire and maybe not sure about ability, but nonetheless, it's motivation. So all of these are just examples of change talk or not change talk. So what I'm hoping will begin to happen is that you tune your ear. You're listening in particular for change talk because when you hear it, it's something important. Now, we find often when we're teaching motivational interviewing and we're listening to people practicing, there's change talk all over the place there, and it's like the counselor didn't hear it. They just kind of go right over it. It's a missed opportunity. When you hear change talk, it's an opportunity and something to remember. And next time we'll be talking a lot about what you do. Now, as a next step here, I would like you to develop some of your own change talk. So we won't go into breakout rooms for this one. We will for number 8. But for number 7, you'll just be working on your own for 10 minutes. And what I want you to do is think about a change that you would like to make, or that you hope to make, or you plan to make within the next year or so, maybe even less than that, but you haven't done it yet. So, and we all have these all the time. So some kind of change that you would like to make, or that you hope you can make, or you plan to make, and thinking about it, considering it, but haven't done it yet. And I would like you to write down some statements that you will then use in practice number 8. So you'll need these statements. And here are 8 possibilities. You could write down why you want or hope to do this. Or you could just say, I want to, I hope to. That would be okay too. What is the change that you're considering? Write down some good reasons for you to do it. Say something about why it's important and how important it is for you to do it. Say something about how you could do it. You know a lot about yourself. So if you wanted to do this, if you decided you were going to do this, how could you do it? What would you do to succeed? Number 5, what is there about you that could help you make this change? What strengths, abilities, skills do you have, knowledge that would help you move in this direction and make this change? What about you could help you make the change? What are you willing to do? What have you already done that's kind of a step in this direction? And what are you going to do? Now, you don't have to answer all of those questions, but just write down answers to some of them. And the answers will be change talk, your own change talk about this particular task. So give that a try now. We'll take about 10 minutes. I'll come back in 10 minutes or so, and then we'll take the next step on to practice number 8. But important for you to do this. Take 10 minutes now. Okay, that's probably enough time. We'll have time at the end of the session today to discuss this material, but one of the things I'll be interested in hearing is your own experience as you're writing down your own change talk. In a way, this is sort of a self-help form of motivational interviewing. But I hope this helps you to begin to get inside what change talk sounds like and the different varieties of it. So now the practice is voicing your own change talk, which is the very thing we were just doing. And I think there'll be 4 or so people per breakout room, and you'll have 20 minutes with each other. A first thing to do is decide who's going to be the speaker, and maybe you'll have time for more than one interview. That's okay. But who will be the first person to talk about the change talk that they've written down? Who will be the interviewer, just doing what I was doing of listening and making sure you're understanding what the person is saying. And then the other people there will be observers. So your task is the same as the observers just a little while ago. So the topic for the speaker is the same thing, change you would like to make, hope to make, and you're going to be using your change talk statements that you just did, okay? So when you're the interviewer, just use your oars, just ask open questions or just reflective listening, just making sure you're understanding what the person's saying. You don't have to make anything happen. You're not trying to fix anything. You're just trying to understand. Just be curious and focused and listen well. Don't give any advice, and reflect back to the person the motivations that they're telling you. So just how you understand it. And then when you reach a kind of ending point there, at least one observer, based on the notes you took, give a summary of all the change talk you heard. So pull it all together. So for the conversation that we just had, if I were doing that, I would say, so you've really been thinking about more physical exercise. It sounds like you've been thinking about this for a while. You know it's important, and you know that as you get older, it's even more important and can be more difficult. And so you have a sense that this is something you would like to do now, really. If you did, you think you would have more stamina. If that feels like it's important to you to stay healthy and do that. So I'm trying to pull together the things that the speaker said, and you'll have notes in front of you as the observer, so you can actually use your notes and just say back to the person all the stuff you heard, all the things you heard that were motivations for change. And again, the observers' notes are the same. These categories of darn and cats: desire, ability, reasons, need, commitment, activation, and taking steps. So if you're ready to do that and don't have any questions, you can go into the breakout rooms and have this very kind of conversation. And then I'll say a few more things in the session, and then we'll have time to talk about this at the end of the session today. So we can discuss that in a bit. I want to say, don't be discouraged by ambivalence, because it's normal. And change talk usually comes mixed up, tangled up with sustained talk, even in the same sentence. I wish I could quit, but I really enjoy smoking. I wish I could quit is change talk. I really enjoy smoking is sustained talk. They come mixed together. It's fine. I know that eating vegan would be good for me, but I really don't want to. Anyhow, I've tried before and it's really hard. Eating vegan would be good for me. There's change talk, a reason. I really don't want to. There's desire, sustained talk. I've tried before and it's hard. There's ability, sustained talk. This is how it usually happens. I might enjoy going to college, but I could, yeah, and I could probably do it, but I really don't need to. Besides, I think I can earn as much money without more education. I might enjoy going to college. There's change talk desire. I could probably do it. There's change talk ability. I don't really need to. There's sustained talk need. And I can earn as much without more education, sustained talk reason. So this is how it normally is certainly in the contemplation stage. Nothing unusual, nothing distressing about that. But there's change talk in there. And you'll even hear these markers like but, although, besides, anyhow, that separate the change talk from the sustained talk in the language. And I'll be showing you how to snatch change talk out of the jaws of ambivalence, how to help people resolve that ambivalence in the direction of change.